Welcome to Expats Everywhere. If you could tell us your name, where you're from, and a little about your background.
Yeah, so my name is Tom Edwards. I'm from the UK, living in London at the moment, and I've lived in a few different countries actually. I've got a past studies in different languages as well, so always been interested in the different cultures. Lived in Spain and Portugal outside of the UK.
So you say that you've worked in Spain. How many years were you in Spain?
So I've lived there a couple of different times. I lived there as part of my university degree. So I was there for 9 months, where I lived in the northwest of Spain in a smaller town. And then a couple of years ago, I was in Madrid for 6 months working.
What was it like working in Spain?
It's very different to the UK way of working. The Spanish culture is built on a slightly different philosophy, both outside of work and within work, and I've definitely noticed a difference there.
What types of jobs are available for English-speaking expats?
So the first time I went as part of the British Council, which organises a lot of assistant teaching for English as a second language. And actually that first time I was there for 9 months, I was teaching in a school as a language assistant. And the second time when I was in Madrid, I was working actually for my employer, a large multinational telecoms company, which I worked for in the UK and then moved over to Spain with. But you know, I've had a lot of colleagues and friends out there that have predominantly been working as English teachers, but also in some consultancies as well as the telecoms industry.
Well, let's focus on your job in Madrid. What did a typical day look like?
So yeah, I usually start at about 9:30 within Spain. I think it's a slightly later start, and then work all the way through till around about 2 o'clock, which is when the Spaniards generally tend to take a break for lunch, which can be anywhere between an hour and 2 hours. That was probably one of the big things I noticed in terms of difference between the UK and Spain is that longer lunch break they tend to take. A few people go home, have lunch with their families, others stay in the office, but they've always got a few different restaurant options, and you end up actually having a fairly big meal of 2 or 3 courses. Then the afternoon between, let's say, 4 and 7 or 8, I was back in the office. And yeah, usual time to go home is around 7 or 8 p.m, at least in my experience there.
How much can you expect to earn working in Madrid?
So, I mean, obviously it will depend entirely on what type of role you're doing. I think finding a job in Madrid, if you've got English as a language, is a big help. As a language teacher, I know a few of my friends who were earning around about €1,000 a month, doing, I guess, part-time work within a school and then earning on top of that with private tuition, which I think was up to around €20 an hour. Then within the other industries, I think you can probably be looking at, for someone that's had a couple of years experience, maybe around the 25 to 35,000 euro mark, depending on what type of role you're doing. I think that's probably a realistic starting point.
Is this enough money to live on?
Yes, absolutely.
And what kind of lifestyle can you live?
So that's the one thing I noticed about living in Madrid, and one of the things I loved about it as well is you really, on a reasonable salary, and I know a lot of the preconceptions is it's quite difficult to find a role in Madrid or in Spain in general at the moment because of the unemployment levels, but actually, having any sort of job, you can actually live very, very reasonably. You can do pretty much anything you want to do on a daily basis, whether that's going out for meals in the evening. It's a very social atmosphere in Spain, and a lot of people do it. Or taking day trips around the country. I never felt that was a financial difficulty doing that.
So making this general salary, how much can someone expect to save?
So if you're earning about €30,000 a year, I'd say you could probably save in the region of, and again depending on your lifestyle, but probably around maybe €5,000.
How much does someone need to start up? So let's say that you have someone that is maybe moving not from somewhere in Europe, but outside of Europe, and they're coming in, getting started. What are those startup costs like?
Probably around €1,000, I think, would be enough to start you out, get you a place for, a hotel at the beginning while you're looking for a place, transporting all your stuff over. €1,000 should be enough to do that.
Okay. How should someone pack to move there, and what's the weather like?
So the weather, I think people go there with an understanding that the weather's good all year round. At least I did, going from the UK. Actually, I found that in the winter it does get pretty cold. It can go down to 0 degrees. It would actually, when I was there, it went down a bit below that as well. That's centigrade. And I found that actually in the winter you need to dress for winter. So jumpers, coats. Whereas in the summer, obviously, the temperatures can get up to around 40 degrees Celsius in July, August. And actually, you'll find all the Madrileños, the people that live in Madrid, they all leave Madrid because it gets too hot in the city. So, I think you've got to pack for all types of weather. You don't tend to get too much snow, but definitely for the heat and the cold if you're staying for the whole year.
So what are some things that you can't find in Spain that you recommend people bring there?
Depending on personal tastes, the things that I found difficult living in Madrid were fresh milk, which I understand is a bit difficult to take on a plane, especially for more than a week or a few days, and things like bacon. I think it was more the food side of things that I struggled with. But again, actually, the Spanish cuisine is great. And you very quickly adapt to that way of eating, and they've got fairly international. You've got a lot of international options over in Madrid, especially. Probably less so if you're in other parts of the country.
So you had no real difficulties coping with things that you couldn't find in Spain or in Madrid?
No, not really. I think it was more on the food side that I missed things from home.
Sure.
I mean, for myself, being in the UK, it was a bit easier to pop back there to pick up things. But in general, no, I think you can get pretty much anything you need out there. Things like television, they're things you might miss a bit. The Spanish television, in my opinion, isn't particularly exciting, but that's my opinion.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit. Can you tell us about some safety? How safe is it there, and did you feel safe on a personal level?
Yeah, no, I think in general Madrid's a pretty safe city. I guess being a big city, it has, as with any big city, a few dangerous areas, and really it's just about common sense. I think the most danger you'll ever be in is from pickpocketers, so people that are going to take some things out of your pockets during tube rides or just when you're out and about in the city. I actually had an experience a few years ago where I was buying a ticket at a bus station and turned around and found someone's hand in my bag, but they kind of smiled and walked off. So, but in general, I never felt in danger. There are probably a couple of areas that you wouldn't want to walk around in at night. Lavapiés, an area in sort of south of the centre, and a couple of others. But in general, I found it pretty safe there. Yeah.
Good. So, how did you meet people, and what can you do for fun there?
Meeting people in Spain is very easy. As I said, it's a very social culture. Everyone, you'll always find someone to go out for a bit of tapas with, or a drink in the evening and in the afternoon. I think Spanish people are very welcoming as well. In a big city, that's always less so, but even in Madrid, I found it pretty easy to integrate into different, or at least meet people. I think then integrating into a big group of Spanish people might be slightly more difficult, and once you're in for life, if you see what I mean. But in general, going out and meeting people, meeting expats is the easiest, I'd say, of any country I've ever been in, just because you've got that whole social scene. And
does it kind of center around food and drink, or are there other things people can get involved in, other activities?
So the Spanish love football or soccer. So if you show any form of interest in that, you're immediately in a very long conversation. Food and drink, I'd say, is definitely a central theme when going out, but there's a lot of things to do in Madrid as well. So in terms of meeting people, probably your best bet is around the bars, and again on the sports scene, the football scene. But equally, there are plenty of things you can go around the city and experience, absolutely.
Do you think that Madrid is a good travel hub for the country and the rest of Europe and even the world? Why or why not?
So within the country, absolutely. I mean, it's if you look on a map, it's bang in the centre, and all the transport channels go straight through Madrid. So they're building all these new AVE, the fast speed trains, which you can get to the north to south in a few hours. It's pretty quick. You can also get very cheap options with the bus. So it's pretty inexpensive and also fast to get pretty much anywhere in Spain. If you want the beach, Madrid's the furthest away it could possibly be, but it's actually probably quicker than from other parts of Spain. Then for the rest of Europe, again, I mean, you can get a lot of low-cost airlines. Actually, Iberia, which is the Spanish airline, have a low-cost option as well. And as with anything in Europe, everything's pretty close. So you can get back to London, where I live, in 2.5 hours. Over to Eastern Europe might take a bit longer. 4 hours is probably the longest you'll be going within Europe. So absolutely, I'd say. And then the rest of the world, again, Madrid's got a pretty international airport. I think it's got 4 terminals, so you can get easy flights to pretty much anywhere.
Well, let's wrap things up, Tom. If you could tell us a few pros and cons of living in Madrid.
Yeah, so I mean, I have to say that it's probably the best city I've ever lived in from a living point of view. I absolutely love the way of life. Summarising what I've said already, I think the people are very friendly and there's a real big social scene out there. So you're never short of people to go out with and things to see. Another pro is obviously the weather. For me, again, I'm used to a bit more of a cloudy climate, so seeing the sun, it might not always be warm, but it will most likely always be sunny, and that's something that's makes a big difference, and actually I think has an impact on the way people, on their outlook on the day-to-day and in life in general. And then cons, I can't really think of too many cons. I mean, I wouldn't hesitate too much to go back and live there. If anything, I'd probably say things can sometimes take a bit longer than in the UK. At least I'm used to, government processes and immigration process, things like that moving pretty efficiently. I'd say things like that may take a little bit longer to navigate, but not complex at all.
Tom, listen, thank you so much for spending some time with us and letting expats everywhere know about Madrid.
Not at all. Thanks for having me.